Welcome to the Ignite Show. You're listening to the Virtual Propane Expo. I'm Tom Clark. I'm Executive Director of the Rocky Mountain Propane Association. Been in the propane industry for almost 30 years. We have a podcast that we do weekly called The State of Energy, which will also be on the Virtual Propane Expo coming up. This is our first episode of the Ignite Show, and we're here to ignite the conversation between propane suppliers, vendors, manufacturers, and the propane retailers. The Ignite Show was put together by the Virtual Propane Expo as a supplement to the standard Propane Expo, where you can be a guest on our show. And I'm happy to invite our first guest, or to have our first guest on the show, Mr. Chris Keyser from CS Keyser Consulting. And Chris has a long background of being in the propane industry. Welcome, Chris. And we really appreciate you being our first official guest on the show. Hopefully this is something that picks up and we're able to have somebody on weekly. So
thank you, Tom. Basically, it detects the absolute limits of mercaptan in the gas stream, so that you can be in compliance with the regulations that are put out there by the 49 CFR. That's what this effort is all about.
So if I'm a propane provider and I have what type of system would be required for this?
Sure. So this is called a jurisdictional system. As a marketer, I always used to try to avoid jurisdictional systems because of the increased complexity with regulation, both federal and state. But as time goes on, if you're looking for volume, and many people are putting in large bulk storage, 30, 60, 90, and then with a distribution system, that's called a jurisdictional system. There's technical, and I'll let you go to your code books for it. But basically, if it's a commercial application where you pipe gas underneath a public road, or there are 10 units of apartments with a commercial unit. Anyway, that's what they're all about. That's what we're talking about, jurisdictional systems. And under that jurisdictional system, there's a requirement that you document the mercaptan levels, or the smell of the propane. And that's basically what we're trying to get at, Tom.
And it doesn't matter if somebody else owns this system or you own the system, the propane provider owns this, because some of these are community owned, some of them are owned by the resort or owned by the city. But if you're the propane provider, you have some liability into these systems for this, right? This could be not just the propane retailer, it could be a propane wholesaler that should be involved with this as well.
Well, take, for example, some of the accounts that people are used to, things that I have serviced in the past. You have a 30,000 gallon propane tank, you call up your supplier, you have a common carrier bring it in there. And the only real record that you would have is that on the bill of lading, it would say that according to the paperwork, you have been odorized.
Yeah,
that is not proof perfect that it has been odorized, and that can be the catch for some.
The mercaptan itself.
Mm-hmm.
What is mercaptan? And this is a trick question because I already know where it comes from.
We had some long talks off screen about what is mercaptan, and I'm not going to.
You're not going to go there?
I'm not going to startle people, but basically it's a sulfur compound which has a very distinct smell, as we all know and love in our heavy ends when we clean those out, eh? So, but as you know, natural propane in its purest form has no smell.
Yeah.
All the, and so in order to know that it exists, one of the regulations is that you put a 20% of the lower explosion limit, that it be detectable. So that's a very technical and specific type of equation. And by saying that your driver smelled it really doesn't satisfy the regulation. So.
And we've all been through some type of CTEP training class where we learned that we're supposed to odorize our propane at 1/5 of the lower flammability limit. And that equals out to be something like 1 pound per 10,000 gallons. But today's world, you can't guarantee that that actually got odorized. There's lots of use for unodorized propane. You see it all over the place now. So there's been plenty of litigation, plenty of different lawsuits that happen where the consumer says, I didn't smell any gas and my house exploded. And then you drag in your propane provider, the wholesaler, all sorts, the refinery, everybody gets drug into this. So this service that you provide, you actually show up to this facility and test the actual mercaptan level, the not just the level of the gas, because that's one way of checking to see if there's gas. There's people pull out a gas detector and say, yep,
yeah,
the gas detector went off, but a gas detector doesn't actually check the level of the smell, the mercaptan. Right. Your service actually measures the mercaptan itself.
Right. Well, it's I brought along the instrument that is used for this.
That looks fancy. That looks like something that Joe Biden has next to his desk to launch the nuclear codes.
Well, let's hope it's not that terrible. But what it is, it's a very rather sophisticated gas measurement device. The ultimate being a gas chronometer. But this actually has you input the stream of gas through it, and then you modulate the amount going through it. And by actually physically smelling, whether or not you smell gas, you can register that smell, and then it'll record what level you have of mercaptan at when you first notice it. So you have a system that will tell you whether or not you have mercaptan, and if you do, how much you have. So you can then justify within range that you physically have the appropriate amount of odorant for legal purposes.
So could you do this for other reasons besides just a jurisdictional? If somebody just said, hey, I want to just check to see how much mercaptan we have in our, say, a big storage facility, would you go do that as well? Or
I think that's important. Consider all the bulk plants that are being put up these days. I mean, propane is very vibrant type of industry, and it's always been understored. So, for example, did a job with a fellow that put in 230s, fresh steel, brand new steel. How much mercaptan gets absorbed into that steel? So his concern was more that when does my mercaptan reach the levels that are necessary? Really, in new steel, you might consider putting in more mercaptan, but that's something that happens way down the line that you are not in control of. But you can at least measure what you have as time goes on.
So if you were concerned that maybe whatever source you're getting your gas from maybe doesn't smell enough, you could hire Chris to come out and he'd check it for you at your plant. That device you have there looks super expensive, so I can't imagine people would want to have that as a tool at their office.
This particular unit is in the $8,000 range. It is every 2 years you have to send it back in to get recalibrated. So it's a precise instrument, and that's basically what came to me when I realized that the company that I was leaving needed to do this on a regular basis. They were actually considering, well, we won't do it because it costs so much money. And it seemed reasonable that given the liability that can present itself in this situation, that I could provide a consultant service where I would come out and do the testing on the physical plant, provide you with a certified results, and it might cost you a couple $100 to do that.
The key word right there, I think, is certified results.
Right.
There's so many different things you can try to do on your own, but that just puts you at more risk. And when you got a partner like you that that's certified to do this, that's giving you the documentation that's needed. You'll come out. What do you just put them on a schedule, or you just have
Right.
is this like what kind of service is this? I'm thinking of like subscription style. Is this what?
Right, exactly. Well, you're dealing with a man from Vermont that is used to a handshake with deals.
Isn't
Okay.
Bernie Sanders from Vermont?
Oh no. Oh no. We may call him Bernie Sanders, but we're a different political party.
Oh, okay, good.
Thanks, Tom. But the point is, every marketer or distributor has different needs. I mean, for example, if you're up next to a refinery in where they're producing some propane, a lot of times that stuff goes out of the refinery gate without any mercaptan in it, and it's up to the terminal to do that. So you may be more interested if you get your carloads from a refiner, or so it depends on what you're interested in. So what I say to people is, let's talk about what you want. Let's decide individually how you want to go forward, whether you want to be on a subscription service, whether you just like to see what it says, whether you have an obligation under a contractual obligation with a customer that says you comply with all federal and state, what is the frequency of that? And then based on that understanding and the time and it takes, then we would come up with an agreement that produces things like a hold harmless agreement and a mediation, but also outlines, what happens if I don't find any mercaptan, who keeps the record, anything that you can think of, that's in the engagement letter. And that's how we'll handle business.
There's just so many other reasons why you need to use this service besides just the litigation. You're actually measuring the quantity of mercaptan levels.
That's true.
And I've heard, and maybe this is a plug that you don't want to go down, this road, but I've heard from some of members in our area that says they think they got too much mercaptan.
Oh.
And there's been high efficient furnaces that don't run well when there's too much mercaptan in the gas. Is that something, if somebody called up and says, I got a customer that just complained because we destroyed X amount of furnaces, could you come out and check to see how much mercaptan was in their gas?
Absolutely. Yeah. No, it's also on the high end. It's not only just do you have it, but it's also how much do you have, and if you're over, the number is 0.5, and we won't get into the decimals, but 0.5, if you're over 0.5, you have exceeded the amount that's necessary. Frankly, I'd have to look and see or people would have to tell me how much mercaptan is bad for a high efficiency unit. But I could tell you what that amount is once we measure it.
Then that's, I didn't want to go backwards with our conversation about where mercaptan comes from, but I wanted to give you a label. This has got to be a biohazard, because mercaptan is actually, for the folks that don't know, dead organisms, mostly animals, that they get this nasty smelling oil out of these dead animals. Right. So you got some type of hazmat suit that you wear when you go do this?
Let's put it this way: I'm working in propane. I don't think I'm need a hazmat suit.
The other thing I wanted to mention, I was in the propane industry for a long time, and when I'd come home from work, and I'd just be working in the office, and my wife would say, "Man, you stink. You need to go take your clothes off and wash them." I didn't even touch any gas today, but just being in that environment where there's trucks loading and gas being, purged cylinders or whatever it is that you're doing, you just get used to the smell. Right. So you come home, you smell. I used to tell my wife, I said, that's the smell of money.
Yeah.
But you get used to smelling gas all the time. So in the NFPA 58 and 54, it talks about you have to have your gas odorized. You have to do a sniff test. A sniff test to the average guy that doesn't deal with propane every single day has got to be totally different than a guy that smells propane all day long. It's on your hands, it's on your gloves, it's on the truck. So the sniff test is really hard to say, yep, this gas was odorized. So I think your service definitely has a need. There's a market for it. And if you really want to get serious about your compliance issues, your litigation issues, probably save some money on your insurance premiums too. give Chris a call. How do we get a hold of Chris?
Well, there's a couple different ways. The really straightforward way, the old fashioned way, is maybe to give me a call. And I'll
He is from Vermont, folks. He likes the phone.
If you want to take a email address, CS Keyser Consulting LLC. If you look at at my LinkedIn page, you'll see my telephone number and my email address. And certainly, I suppose they contact you, and you could distribute out that contact also.
So that is CSK Consulting LLC at gmail.com. And you're willing to travel, not just in Vermont. You're going to go nationwide.
That's true.
How far do you want to go?
That really doesn't matter. You know, if this time of year, and I hear you got great snowpack out there. I think skiing would be in order, wouldn't that? But no, you get the idea. No, if I can put together, consider this as your marketers talk to you. If you've got a couple guys that want to work together, sure, you could share my expenses. I wouldn't double dip, and we would. You can usually do 5 or 6 of these tests a day, and so. It's just a question of getting me out there, putting me up, and going to it.
And we are talking about most of these are remote areas, right? I mean,
yeah.
We're talking about remote systems, remote areas that use propane to heat their lodges or their hotels or their communities that they have. So it's not like you just show up to a major city. There's lots of travel involved in this, because you made the major airport that you're going to go into, then you got to travel to the town that you're going to go do this service at. And you might be able to take your skis. If you come over to Utah, and we'll go on a little road trip and do some inspections.
There you go. There you go. So it's a very open-ended type of thing and if time is not of the essence, I'll drop anything and go right out if you think that's important to you. But otherwise, it would be a planned process where you'd know when it would happen. And if you wanted something like, I've got several clients that want it done every 6 months. I've got one that just says, no, I want to make sure I can tell my client that we comply with all the state and federal regulations, and he figures one time is good enough. And but it's up to you, whatever you want to do. I'm not here to be an enforcement.
Well, we appreciate you being on the show. We got your phone number. We got your email. We're going to post that on here. And if anybody needs some type of Mercaptan level measuring for whatever reason, mostly for municipality propane ran systems, but Chris just told us he'll do it for any reason you want. Get a hold of Chris today and get your business up to date on the requirements and cover your butt a little bit on the legal side. So thank you very much, Chris.
Tom, thank you for your time. It's been a pleasure.
Have an awesome day, awesome weekend.